Hey everybody, Nancy here from American Pet Professionals. Happy Tuesday and welcome back to another episode of our fall season of digging into the pet industry. So we are streaming live on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. So wherever you're watching from, thank you so much for watching. And if you happen to be listening to a future podcast, thank you so much for listening. So today I'm so excited to have on APP member Michael Schneider, the top dog of Pilots to the Rescue. Welcome, Michael.
Well, thanks for having me, Nancy, and I'm excited to speak to your listeners.
Definitely, definitely. I'm so excited to have you on and to welcome you to our organization. You're one of our newer members. So I know we chatted a bunch, but I'm really happy to have you on the show today so we can share with our viewers and listeners all the amazing things that you do. But here on Digging into the Pet Industry, we dig in first from the beginning. So, what did you do before entering into the pet industry?
I've been an entre before the pet industry. I've been an entrepreneur pretty much since my early teens. But most recently, before going at Pilots to Rescue full time, I had a corporate events business. Had to do with the hospitality interior design. I'm the original and founding publisher of a brand called Boutique Design, which still is alive today. And I
Wow.
started a trade show at Javits Center that now has over 1,000 exhibitors called Boutique Design New York.
Wow, I didn't
So
know that. That's so
yeah,
cool.
yes, I like to tell people maybe entrepreneurs wouldn't be so quick to admit this, but I've had a lot of failures and very few successes. And boutique design and Pilots to Rescue are two of my best successes.
Well, congratulations on that. I didn't know. I was a trade show person and used to go to Vision Eyewear and CES and all these other crazy trade shows at the Javits across the country. So, and of course, I go to all the pet industry trade shows now, but that's so cool. When is your trade show? Is it annual?
Yeah, it's every November. I'm
Okay.
no longer in that industry.
Okay.
Really, COVID put the nail in the coffin for me, like
Yeah.
so many other folks. So we sold that business. My father and I sold that business in 2008, really in its infancy, and out of necessity. If you remember what was going on in 2008, as a
Yep.
small business owner, that was a very difficult time.
Yeah.
And then I went on to work for the new owners, and which was a privately held, family-owned company in Cincinnati, where I got my pilot's license. And they sold it. Timing is everything, they say, right before COVID, like in
Oh, geez. Wow.
2019. So I didn't want to work for the new company because they were my competitor for the longest time and
Mm.
just different chemistry.
Yeah.
I mean, I started my own thing,
Yeah.
but we really never got it off the ground because of COVID. I mean, during COVID, business to business events were just decimated.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Everything
Nobody
was
was
virtual.
traveling.
Yep.
Exactly.
Everything
Everything
was,
was virtual.
yeah.
And we tried to do stuff like that, but my heart wasn't into it. So good opportunity to jump ship.
Yeah. Well, listen, I'm excited for what you're doing now. And that all of that background, though, gives you so many organizational skills in planning and prepping and jumping in really quickly for what you do now. So, how did you get started in the pet industry with Pilots to the Rescue?
Well, Pilots of Rescue came about from skydiving on the aviation side. That was
Hmm.
my first foray into general aviation. You know, these small propeller planes. That's usually the first time anybody has gone in one of these small planes. And I just became enamored by the instrumentation, the single pilot, and started asking them questions. And they said, take a discovery flight, which I did. I was living in Cincinnati at the time. I took the discovery flight. Anybody can take one of these flights, and I highly encourage it. It costs a few $100.
Hmm.
The instructor goes up with you, obviously. They do the takeoff, they do the landing, but you get to experience what it's like to fly a small aircraft. So I did that, and I was instantly hooked. I signed up for lessons right away. So that's where the love of aviation came into play. The animal rescue was really ingrained uh, in me as a small child. My parents, that was just something that we did. We rescued animals at the local SPCA. I grew up in
Hmm.
Westchester County, New York. We had
Hmm.
the SPCA in Briarcliff,
Yep.
and have very vivid memories of going there on multiple occasions, adopting dogs and cats. Some of them working out, some of them not, and they always took them back. And but that really spawned a love of animals. I was, to my parents' dismay, I was the one who brought in the injured bird and
Right.
nursed it back to health.
Yep.
There was some experimentation with different types of pets: hamsters, gerbils, hermit crabs, fish. You name it, even a
Yeah.
family of mice, if you can believe it. But
Yes.
um, yeah, I mean, that's really where my affinity towards rescue animals came from. I always had a connection with animals, and then I combined my love of both after hearing about another organization doing something similar to what we do. There's about 10 of us in the United
Yeah.
States using these small planes to transport animals. And being the entrepreneur that I am and wanting to get into more expensive aircraft, naturally, any entrepreneur thinks they can build a better mousetrap.
Right.
Um, yeah, that's how Pilots to Rescue was born. I set an unreasonable goal to raise $10,000 within 48 hours by calling all my friends and family. And sure enough, I raised enough money. I started the website, etc. So
Wow, that's really
yeah,
cool and so inspirational for anybody that's thinking they can't do it, that you can do it. You just have to take the steps to do it, right? So, well, when did you actually launch Pilots to the Rescue? When was that first, like, okay, the call to the friends and family and the website? What year was that?
that was in 2015. So next year will be our 10th anniversary. Very exciting.
Oh, very congratulations. Very
Thank
cool.
you.
So
Yeah.
tell us exactly, what Pilots to the Rescue does. I mean, I know, and some people watching might, but what is the crux of what you could do?
We transport at Pilots to Rescue. We transport animals that are at risk of being euthanized using volunteer pilots. So we do own and operate our own aircraft. We fly them out of New Jersey, but we
Okay.
also have a network of volunteer pilots across the country that step up to the plate. And we also have volunteer drivers as well. For anybody listening that's not a pilot or doesn't have access to an aircraft, you can also help out. And then
Yeah.
we have our own ground transport vehicles as an organization. But that's what we do. We transport animals that are at risk of being euthanized to give them a better chance of being adopted. So all our trips take us down south here on the eastern seaboard, the Carolinas, Georgia, Tennessee, Kentucky. That's generally the range of the aircraft and the ground vehicles
Hmm.
without it taking too long. And then we also do some rescue from like Texas and Florida, but we often meet teams halfway. It's just huge distances.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, and up here in New England, the Northeast, we do a better job at adopting on rescue animals. We really do. There's more awareness. There's more money available. The
Yeah,
politics are just different. It's in fashion to rescue a rescue animal.
yeah,
Um, whereas down south we see a lot of overcrowded municipally run shelters. We see hoarding cases, animal neglect and abuse.
yeah.
So by providing these services and getting the animals out sooner, thereby they have a better chance of being adopted. So,
That's
and then
incredible.
there's other great use cases for aviation. We have to be careful how many times we dispatch aviation resources because they're extremely expensive. So
Yeah.
we become more cognizant of that as we grow and mature as an organization. I mean, we're about to receive a $2 million aircraft. It costs almost $1,000 to operate. So it's a lot easier to dispatch the van because it's more economical. But
Right.
the aviation resources, a perfect example is the hurricanes that we're having. So many of the roads and bridges, as you know, anybody turns on the news, are impassable right now. So by having a plane available, we're able to fly into these smaller airports that are some of the first things to open up in these municipalities and bring in much needed supplies and hopefully bring some animals out. So that's a
Yeah.
great use case of planes.
Yeah, it's just devastating what is going on and what's happening in live real time right now with the other hurricane out in the Gulf. So everybody's going to be really busy. How many volunteer pilots do you have, and drivers and all that? Do you have within the organization?
We have over 1,000 volunteers
Oh
in our
wow,
database across the country. We'd like them to step up more. It's a big ask because,
yeah,
like I said, these are extreme distances. If you're a pilot, you're typically renting a small 2 or 4 passenger aircraft and flying a few hours here and there. It doesn't always move the needle in terms of the great distances that we need, but you can do relays also where multiple people respond. But yeah, we have a lot of people in the database, and they do chime in quite a bit. So we're fortunate in that regard.
okay. So and is it easy for a rescue to apply to help with transport? How does that work?
It's very simple. Yeah, it takes about 10 minutes. You just fill out a form on our website, and then there's a notification-based system whereby the volunteers will get they'll get a notification. And it is a bit of a do-it-yourself system, but the sending shelter often gets involved in coordinating, and people exchange phone numbers and totally bypass the system, which that's, the system is only meant to connect the players that are making it happen.
Okay.
Afterwards, people typically email and make their own attempts to coordinate and communicate.
Okay. So I
Yeah.
get it. So that makes it a little bit easier for you guys that you're not the middle person. You set everything up and get
Well,
them on their
yeah.
way.
We're like a hybrid system, so
Yeah.
we do our own internal rescues and our own operations. We have a transport coordinator, we have planes, we have ground vehicles. We don't typically put that on the transport board. But the transport board is really important piece of what we do because we can't do everything, and we get a lot of requests that are smaller, 1 or 2 or 3 dogs,
Mm,
4 or 5 cats. We're not going to dispatch this huge plane for such a small load, or even our Sprinter van for that matter is ginormous. It's huge. This week, we're doing 25 dogs with the Humane Society, helping clear out their facility in Hagerstown, Maryland, so that they can intake animals from the hurricane, both Helene and Milton. So sometimes we indirectly have a hand in these disasters like that,
yeah.
but we're moving 25 dogs. So the transport board is a repository. It's a place we don't want to say no. All these animals are worth saving. So
Right.
at least we have somewhere we can resource. We can give people to utilize the tools and do it themselves.
Mhm.
And I think we have such a huge problem with euthanizing animals in America still, nearly a million a
Yeah.
year.
It's
You need
terrible.
as many tools and resources available to get this stuff done. So that's where the transport board comes in. Rather than saying no, we give them a place to go and post it, and hopefully it gets rescued.
I love that because all the time we have members that are nonprofit, they're always looking for somebody that is, hey, is there somebody that lives in Maryland? Is there somebody that lives in Connecticut? Can you drive this dog upstate, or dogs, even if it's just a couple, even if they're small? So the fact that you facilitate that is such a fantastic way to get people to have another place to go to besides thinking that it's just aviation, right? Because that might seem a little bit out of their reach on the outskirt if they don't know enough about it, right? If they're not really diving in and looking into it. So I love that you do that because that transport is so important, and like you said, every pet is worth being saved, and the fact that we do euthanize so many animals is just absolutely heart-wrenching and gut-wrenching and heartbreaking. So I really appreciate that you do that. So tell me a little bit about the bigger plane that you have that you had mentioned before.
Yeah, so we've owned History Organization since 2015. We've owned 4 of these smaller type planes. It's a
Hmm.
Piper product. It's like a small SUV with the seats taken out, single engine prop plane. We sold, we have one left that we're getting ready to sell. So we're getting away from these recreational type planes that so many people see for flight instruction or rental and stuff like that. And we're getting into something that's more commercially viable or more robust, more reliable. It's called a Kodiak 100. It's made in Sands Point, Idaho, and it's they call it a bush plane. It's really made, it's over engineered, really even for what we do, but it's a testament to the build quality and the reliability. It's meant to operate in extreme conditions,
Mm,
and requires little maintenance as possible. And it it's larger. That's the first point, at least double of what
wow.
we've been operating. The other thing is that it's meant to run longer between certain overhauls, specifically the engine itself. So, from an owner operator perspective, downtime is really important, limiting downtime, because if we don't have a plane, then we have to resort to the only having the ground vehicles, which take a lot longer. It's more
Yeah.
stress on the animals. So the important thing is that it's more reliable and that it's larger. Of course, comes at a higher cost. We had not had the money until now to purchase one of these. Used, it's $2 million. I mean, it's
Wow.
just
Crazy.
mind-boggling. It's
Yeah.
like a flying mansion.
Yeah.
um,
For pets.
yeah, it really is. And then you have the hourly costs on top of that: insurance, hangar,
Yeah.
maintenance, jet. It takes jet fuel, which is a little bit better than aviation fuel. But it's a step in the right direction. It's an asset that we rely on a lot, and not just for transporting animals, but we create a tremendous amount of content, which it's not something that people always realize the power of what we do. But creating content and story, whether it be on social media or
Yeah.
having the media pick up the story, it helps exposure to this problem that we have. And that's how we can exponentially move the needle with regards to saving animals because we're only scratching the surface in terms of volume of the animals that we can transport. But when we create stories and we get the media involved, it just creates tremendous awareness. And let's be real, flying pets on a plane is sexy. It's a novel concept, you know?
Yeah.
It's not something you hear about every day. So
Yeah.
I realize the power of marketing and promotions. And I think as an organization and what we do, we're doing exceptionally well. And we're paying more and more attention to that.
That's great.
Um, and too often, a lot of charities will focus on let's save as many animals as we can, and they forget that they're running. Even if it's a nonprofit, it's still running a business. You
It
have
is.
to focus on
Yep.
fundraising. You have to focus on marketing. Otherwise, they say you'll die with your secret, right? I mean, it's
Yeah.
true with anything. You have to really get the word out there. And the word is go and adopt an animal. Stop buying,
Hmm.
adopt, don't shop, we
Yeah.
say. And we'll continue to beat that drum with Pilots to Rescue. I think that we're very fortunate now we have an awesome vehicle to get people's attention.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, congratulations on the bigger plane. And just, the thought of like you're moving 25 dogs out of a shelter in Maryland, so 25 other lives can be saved from the hurricanes that have been going on. And the more that that happens, the more animals that can be moved can be saved. I think that part of it is, people don't always think about that part of it, right? Making space for more animals. And I've seen a lot of links and posts and stuff like that for people online looking to get pets out of shelters in the areas that are going to be hit or were just hit by the hurricane. So it's really important work that you do. Approximately how many pets have you helped in the 10 years that you've been in operation? Do you have a guesstimate?
Yeah, we've rescued over 3,000.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I have 4 children, 4 boys, 8 and under. So there were a few years there where I wasn't doing a whole lot of rescue.
Right.
Um, but once we get this new plane, we have a chance on doing more than that in 1 year.
Wow.
That's how much bigger of a volume and how often we can dispatch it. So, yeah, 3,000 is not. It's certainly a large number, but hopefully we can grow that big
That's
time.
amazing. And what kind of, you're a nonprofit organization. So I'm imagining you work on donations and you work on grants and everything else. Are you also looking to partner with pet businesses and other organizations outside of the industry?
Yes, we are looking to partner with corporate sponsors. I look at that as a vital collaboration and growing and scaling our organization because let's be real, that's where the money is. I mean, some of these corporations are making huge money,
Yeah.
whether it's dog food or pet products. And we do have some sponsors that are stepping up to the plate. And that's what I did this past year. I went to a Global Pet Expo. I went to Super Zoo. I went to the Humane Society Expo, and
Nice.
all of that has paid tremendous dividends. And the great thing about it is these companies, the people running them, they do have a heart. I think too often we think that people are just interested in making money at all costs. And sure, that does happen, but the employees that make these machines run and make these companies these huge amounts of sums of money and profit, they they want to give back and they want to feel good about what they do. And
Yeah.
it's been shown time and time again that companies that align with nonprofits, it's great business
Yeah.
because it's a different type of fulfillment than getting a paycheck. And that's something that I realized when I jumped ship from a high paying corporate job or high paying corporate business to doing nonprofit work. I'm making less than half what I was before, and I have 4 kids in Brooklyn, but that's okay because it's
Yeah.
it's made up tenfold from the fulfillment of giving back and making a difference. And I think these corporations are starting to understand that it's great business, great for the employee morale,
Yeah.
and we have some great partnerships that are coming on board, and I hope more come. The aviation side, I've already tested that, by the way, and those people they're not really willing to sponsor. It's more difficult. It's a more of a niche industry.
Yeah.
Way fewer pilots and planes out there than pets and the products and services that they consume. So that's my uh, ship that I'm gonna sail in is the pet industry for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, like you said, with the company morale, because then it's like a team building thing where you're getting a crew of employees that want to also be volunteers. Maybe they're doing the driving, maybe they're meeting at the where the airport is to help the pilot with the expedition of the pets getting on and off the plane. It becomes a whole thing. So I think that that's a really fantastic way to look at it. And companies really love that heartfelt story because, like you said, the employees, even the CEOs, they have hearts, right? They want to help the animals. They want to get, especially in the pet industry, you see it all the time. So I think if anybody's watching and listening, definitely reach out to Michael if you want to help out. If you're a big corporation, we'll give you all his information at the end. So let me ask you this. How do the pets do when they're flying with you? I know most of them are crated, but you see those really cute pictures of the pet in the
Mhm.
pilot cabin, or sometimes a pilot flying and you see like the dog sitting on their lap. They do well.
They do well. These planes that we're flying are unpressurized, so unlike the commercial planes
Oh.
that most people go in. So our ceiling in the planes with the animals, like the highest we can fly, that's what a ceiling is in aviation
Hmm.
speak, is 8,000 feet. That's
Oh,
the
okay.
same exact altitude that commercial planes are pressurized at, by the way.
Okay.
The reason I bring that up is it makes them a little sleepy. There's less oxygen. So, the most stressful part of animal transport is the loading. They've never been
Yeah.
in a plane before. They're unfamiliar with the surroundings. They're obviously coming from precarious situation with the shelter that they were at, or the hoarding or case or neglect. So they're timid. Um, but once you get them in the crates and you start up the engine, the vibration and the noise,
Yeah.
and then as you climb, they tend to just go to sleep.
Yeah.
Of course, we pull out animals here and there if they're puppies or kittens, or some animals are just so docile that they're just lap
Yeah.
dogs or
Yeah.
lap cats.
Taking a
We
nap
do
while you're
we
sleeping.
we take them out and we play with them, and we try to fly with two pilots in case there's, or just a regular person so that they can look after the animals. We do tether larger animals because the crate, people ask how many animals can you take on the plane? It's always the crates that are a limiting factor.
Yeah.
And of course, you want to travel in crates, it is safer. But the large dogs, namely 80 pounds or more, sometimes if they're gentle, we just tether them,
Yeah.
um, and it makes you can fit more.
Yeah, that's really great. So I'm also curious. Have any of the pet pilot volunteers that you worked with done a transport and then adopted one of the pets from the transport?
Yes, that's happened several times, including my father-in-law,
Oh.
who he's 89 years old, and he lost his wife a couple of years ago, and that dog, it's a great relationship because the dog keeps him company, but he also, the dog also annoys him, and it's like, oh, that's his new relationship. That's who's kind of looking after him and stuff like that, and it's just a nice relationship. But yeah, they adopted him instantly. His name, or her name, I should say, is Mars,
Aw.
and it's a cattle healer mix. And my mother-in-law, when she was alive, she's like, "Oh, I want that one. I want that one."
Yeah, it'd
So
be
we took
hard
it
to
literally.
resist. Yeah.
Yeah, we took it literally from the airport home.
That's so
Got to
funny.
bypass some of the adoption
Right.
procedures.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I can see that happening more often than not. Do you have any funny stories from flying with pets that you can share? Anything like cracked you up while you were flying?
Yes, earlier when I was doing this, we had a lot of trouble trying to figure out like the right crates, appropriate crates for transport. And early on, we used some soft crates that like folded and stuff like that, and then they had zippers. And we were transporting a litter of cats. And cats are smarter than what people give them credit for, and they're definitely escape artists. And we were flying along, and a cat got out of the crate, went underneath the pilot seats
Yeah.
and into the flight deck.
Oh God.
So I was flying at the time, and I'm glad that we have autopilot, and it was not a difficult phase of flight because that could have caused a lot of problems if it
Right,
wasn't
right.
such a nice cat. But
That's
yeah,
so
that's
funny.
other than that, you just the different types of smells that you have to endure. Um,
Yeah.
and the venting situation. It's not like a car where you can just open the window. Um,
Right, right.
so you got to deal with that, and also the dogs that bark the most, the yappy
Mhm.
ones. They're usually the small ones,
Right, right.
unless it's like a hound or something like that. But nothing other than that in
Yeah.
terms of funny stories.
That is pretty funny with the cat. I had a cat that was a kitten that I had rescued years ago and I was driving them. It was in a cat carrier also and somehow got out and it went under the passenger seat of the car and just meowed the whole way to the vet. I had to like
That's
coax the
it.
cat out. I was like, "Oh my
Yeah.
god."
Oh,
Uh,
kind of amusing and funny story, but also a little. stressful. We've had loose animals at the airport,
Oh,
and the airport we fly out of has a tower, so there is security and like a fence and stuff like that. They shut down the whole airport, so
wow.
anybody looking to come in and out, they put a ground hold.
Oh my
I mean, the
gosh.
same thing would happen at a major
Yeah,
airport.
yeah.
They might only shut down one runway, like if they saw a deer or something, but
Right.
it can become very dangerous. So,
Yeah.
but I remember at one point the airport operations staff was getting involved in trying to capture this dog. We're all running, like 15 of us, after this dog trying to catch it.
Oh
It got
man.
loose from one of the crates. So
Well, I hope you caught it.
we
Okay.
did, and without it getting aggressive or someone hurting themselves.
One of our members, Carrie from Spleesh, is also watching, and her whole family is pilots. So maybe
Oh
we
wow,
can recruit some of her family members to be volunteers with you guys. She's on the West Coast in California, but it's pretty funny. I'm glad
that's
she's
great.
watching. Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
So you're now that you're coming up to your 10-year mark, what are your goals for moving forward for 10 years and on?
So 10th year anniversary milestone. Obviously, it's great. It happened so fast. Getting the larger plane is a huge growth. In terms of resources, we're already building funds for the next aircraft to have mainly to have redundancy because these things, when they break or they need service, it's sometimes lengthy to repair them, especially
Yeah,
if you need a part. Um, so certainly getting another aircraft will help with redundancy and extend our range. We're not going to keep it in New Jersey. We'll probably keep it somewhere down south.
okay.
So we have a shot at raising enough money by the end of next year to purchase another one. That's certainly a goal. And then I mentioned the corporate collaborations, doing more of those. I'm working with bigger and bigger influencers and media outlets. We just hired a PR and comms manager. That
Nice.
was something that was much needed.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to make a huge difference for us. And getting more volunteers is always helpful. Volunteers to drive, volunteers to fly, volunteers to fundraise, volunteers that. So one of the biggest problems with our job, I will say, is finding places that will receive animals, especially now. Adoptions are very low. We have
Yeah.
these we have these disasters. I don't even call them natural anymore, whether you believe they're man-made or not. They're disasters. Um, so that is always an issue, is finding space to bring the animals to. And even large groups like Humane Society struggle with it.
Yeah.
These partners that were driving these animals from Maryland to New Hampshire, and they can't even take all the 25. So they have a partner in Canada that's driving down to New Hampshire to take the remainder.
Yeah.
So that's something that's sorely needed, and that can be volunteers getting on the phone and calling and trying to find shelters with available space.
Yeah,
You
it's so
know,
important. I mean, even here where I am on Long Island, all of our municipal shelters are full, like to the
Mhm.
max. And then some of the semi-privatized shelters or the nonprofits, when they get a plea from the local shelters, they will go and pull, a few dogs each, which is fantastic, but then they're full. So
Yeah,
until there's more adoptions and more people that can foster and more people that
foster.
can, reach out and say, okay, facilitating the property to bring the dogs to, getting more of those organizations up and running is so important. Especially, our shelters across the country right now are very full, right? A lot of dogs are, unfortunately, we're not in 2020 anymore where there was the puppy pandemic. It's kind of the opposite. There's still a lot of adoptions going out. I see that with our local shelters, but not as fast as they were before. Like there's a couple of dogs that I've met in the local shelter, and I'm like, why are those dogs still there? They're
Mm,
amazing. So
yeah.
I appreciate what you're doing and mentioning that because it's so, so important. So, what is, besides what you just said, is there any other big hurdle when running a nonprofit organization that you can speak to?
I'd say to run the nonprofit correctly, the finance side is a challenge. It's a struggle. Not so much about the money. It's never enough money, by the way, no
Right.
matter what. And I've just come to grips with the fact that to scale this, we're just going to constantly have to fundraise and do different programs, etc. And that's with any charity. But running a charity is it's difficult because compensation typically is less. It's
Yeah.
very long hours. I'm used to that as an entrepreneur, but I have to wear so many hats.
Hmm.
And I don't want to start hiring a bunch of people because there'll be no money left.
Right.
So, and then there's certain financial fiduciary responsibilities you have for running a charity. We do a volunteer audit every year, which is like It's not like doing an
No,
audit and going through your books and
I
all that
know.
stuff, as you can imagine, it takes a tremendous amount of time.
Yeah.
Um, and you have to do you got to do that kind of stuff because people, when you run a charity, you're underneath a microscope.
Yep.
And I think it's unfair sometimes the way the general public views charities.
Yeah.
Um, in terms of compensation, that's one area, and how much they want 100% of the money to go towards the cause, and they want the people running it to make nothing. It's
Right.
just not realistic.
Right. Right.
Um, so that constant pressure, it's a careful balance. It
Yeah.
really is. We're starting to get into an area where our program expenses are better ratios, our fundraising costs are lower, but only because we're raising more money.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I mean, and I look back, it's really a struggle when you're raising just a little bit of money. These charities that are bringing in under $1 million, you want to get up above that level as soon as possible. It's just far less scrutiny, um, and you got to live your life. If you're
Yeah.
running a charity, you got to. It's not an easy job. You don't. It's a labor of love. You don't run a charity to make lots of money. Let's put it that way.
Right, right. But
So that's the
that's
challenge.
really great advice because a lot of people, they have the idea that they want to start a nonprofit, and there are a lot of wonderful animal rescues. And sometimes I'm like, maybe you could just work with the nonprofit. It is a lot of work to get that up from the ground. So,
At least
um,
before you start your own, I would
yeah,
highly recommend
exactly.
that, and
Yeah,
I wish I did that myself. I'm a self-starter, I'm an
yeah.
entrepreneur, I hit the streets, I learn on the job, but, it would have been great if I worked for a animal welfare nonprofit for, like, a year before I started my own.
Well, said and done, right? You're all good now. But yeah, definitely if you're thinking about a career in the pet industry, I always tell people to go and work at that place first and see. I wanted to open a retail store and I worked at a pet retail. I still love pet retail, but I'm glad I didn't open my own retail store. So it's pretty interesting. Is there anything else that I didn't ask you that you would like to add for Pilots to the Rescue for people
Well,
to know
I think
about?
that people who listen to these podcasts, they're inspired,
Hmm.
and rightfully so, they wanna get involved, so, um there are ways to get involved with our organization, but we're out of the New York City area, and sometimes it's not the easiest thing for people. What I would encourage people to do is go to your local shelter and roll up your sleeves, get involved. These dogs and cats, they need your love, even temporary. And it's a great watch what happens in your life when you start doing that kind of work. And
Yeah.
these shelters, they need your help. I mean, they're understaffed, they're overworked,
They don't have
especially
enough.
the
Yeah.
municipally run shelters that have to euthanize. Like everybody, I wouldn't use the word kill shelter. We're trying to get away from that in the industry, in the animal welfare industry,
Yeah.
because these are people that are doing their jobs. It's a simple supply and demand, lack of space. They don't want to euthanize these animals,
No, they
believe
don't.
me.
Yeah.
Um, but going there, even if you were, as hard as it is, spend some time with the animals, even before they're scheduled to be euthanized. I mean, it's heart wrenching, it's heartbreaking, but it really showing that kind of compassion and empathy it's going to come back to you tenfold. That's
Yeah.
what people don't understand. It's easy to write a check, and it's hard to actually physically get involved, but physically getting involved is 10 times more rewarding than
Yeah.
just writing that check. And it's more rewarding than buying a new pair of shoes or your new car or any of that stuff. And I think we're on a transformational shift. I would like to think that more people are starting to understand that.
I love that you said that because when there's somebody that has oh, that's from a shelter, or I don't want to go to the shelter because there's only, which I take offense to because I have had a couple of pit bulls. I have one now in my life. There's only pit bulls there. It's actually not true. Our shelters are so full of all kinds of dogs, big dogs, little dogs, purebreds, mixed breeds, doodles, lots of doodles. I was at our local municipal shelter a few times in the beginning of the summer, and there were more purebred German shepherds and huskies than there were pit or pit mixes there. And I think people equate it to being sad, and it can be sad. But if you equate it to you're making a difference for that 1 hour in that dog's life, it could change your life. What I would love to see more municipal shelters do, I know the ACC does it in New York City, is have take a dog out for the day. Like,
Mhm.
screen the person, fill out the form. I would like there's so many dogs at that local shelter that I'm like, I would love to take this dog out and walk them and get to know them and help them get adopted. And it'll also help increase adoptions. I know it's not feasible for everybody, But if any animal shelter directors, municipal people are watching from across the country or listening, that's what I would love, love, love. I know our local shelters instilled playing for life, which is amazing. So now they're finding out more dogs that are actually dog friendly and they like to be in the group play. That's really helping. But I really appreciate you saying that because it's so important for people to really, get involved. And like you said, writing a check is wonderful, but the more people that write a check and physically go to the shelter is just going to help. So thank you for
Right, and
bringing
that's
that
a
up.
great way to do it, Nancy. Instead of mailing the check, just take the check physically
Yes.
to the shelter.
Can I have a tour?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Can I have a tour? I want to play with the animals, and it'll be more
Volunteer.
rewarding.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for saying that. And Michael, it's been such a pleasure having you on today. Thank you so much for all the work that you do. I'm going to have to set up something to come there one day when you're bringing the dogs in so I can do that in the meet and greet. I don't know if I'd want to go in the plane.
That's okay. That's okay.
I
Come
like the
at the
big
end, play
planes.
with the dogs.
Yeah, exactly. But where can people find you?
Well, obviously our website, Pilots to the Rescue. It's pilots with an S. It's all spelled out.
Okay.
Pilotstorescue.org, and then all the major social media channels. We have a lot of fresh content all the time on Instagram and Facebook, and we also do the TikTok and the YouTube. Those are the major channels that we work with, and hopefully at your local news station.
Yes.
We've been on CBS and Channel 11 and Today Show, and we're looking to do more and more of that stuff.
Love it. I love it. So if any of my fellow producers are watching, please go and check out Michael and reach out to him. We will put all those links in the comments afterwards. But again, thank you so much, Michael, for being on and for all the work that you do and for all the animals that you're saving. I really appreciate your help.
You're welcome. My pleasure. Thanks for having me on the show, Nancy.
All right. Take care, everybody. Have a good rest of your Tuesday. Bye.